to a classic London derby, which saw Chelsea race to a 2-goal advantage inside the opening 20 minutes after goals from Pedro and Morata. At that stage, we thought that the Gunners might be on the end of a heavy defeat. However, Arsenal showed real character and created half a dozen presentable opportunities, good goal-scoring opportunities. 2 were taken by Mkhitaryan and Iwobi, many were missed, 2 by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And then in the second half, it was a much-changed performance, really. And Chelsea, after creating an awful lot of pressure, finally, I think most will say, got their just desserts by scoring a winner courtesy of Marcos Alonso's close-range effort, Josh.
Yeah, pressure did pay off for Chelsea in the end. It's frustrating for Arsenal because after coming back, fighting back so well in the first half, after 20 minutes we looked dead and buried, to be honest. We came back, we were creating chances, we didn't want half-time to come, and we never refound that attacking fluency that we had in the first half, unfortunately. But as soon as we do find that again, Arsenal will be a danger this season.
It is a defeat, it's a second loss on the spin, but there are some green shoots of recovery. There are 1 or 2 things certainly that Unai Emery and the boys will take out of this, and I'm sure we're going to discuss those points and indeed get Nigel's thoughts and take some tweaks as well back at base as we pass you back across town. Full time here, it's finished Chelsea 3, Arsenal 2.
So there we go, not to be for Arsenal. A really, really different second half to what we saw in the first half. The guys are still with me, Louise and Nigel. A little bit deflated, a little bit disappointing. I mean, when that goal went in, Nigel, your kind of body language changed completely.
It always does when we lose.
Yeah.
I hate losing, even when I played. It was just, Louise and I were talking about, we almost had 3 different Arsenal teams in one match. And you can't have that. And we had the first 20, 25 minutes where we were poor. We had the period to a half-time where we were outstanding. And then it was almost as if we got back level. We had half-time and it was like, oh, we're back in this when we should be out of it. And we just sat and sat. And we couldn't get that rhythm back into our game, which was a little bit frustrating. There's some positive things there as well. But we've played 2 very good teams that are going to be in the top 4. We've got to improve on that. But there were some good signs as well in that attacking play, particularly towards the end of the first half. And for me, what I did like was the manager was brave enough to make some big decisions as the game went along. And I think that shows me that doesn't matter what your reputation is, you're only going to be on that pitch as long as I think that you're working hard enough. And if not, I'll change it.
And Louise, what are your initial kind of thoughts after the full-time whistle?
Yeah, exactly. I kind of just think second half, just a little bit in no man's land, not sure what they wanted to do. Did they want to try hold on to the draw? Did they want to try go for the win? Were they a little bit in between? But as I was saying, like, yeah, I think overall, I think there were positive changes. You know, it doesn't matter who you are now. You know, you've got to work to be on that pitch, and you know, I think sometimes it then maybe even with the substitutions, it didn't work out so well. I think, you know, kind of leading up to the goal, could Laka have done a little bit better, a little bit more, you know. But I was very impressed though with Guendouzi. I think, you know, he was kind of a bit of the unsung hero, even though, you know, it wasn't a great end to the story. But I think he was just a workhorse, and I think that's a massive thing to work off with him.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that centre of midfield is up for grabs now? Because, you know, we've seen Ramsey play in there, Guendouzi play in there, Ozil's played in there. We've got lots of players that can play in that position, but he's played really, really well there every time he's been called upon.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's exactly what the Arsenal team need. It's just competition. Every team, you want competition. I know if I've got a player coming up me back that wants to take my position, I know that I'm going to push harder for it. So let's hope, you know, the lads are feeling this way, and I feel like Unai is going to push them that way. I think he wants the competition, and I think that's why there even has been, you know, changes from the first game to the second game, and some what some may say kind of controversial changes. You could see maybe Ozil wasn't too pleased with coming off, but this is what he thinks is right. So yeah,
I think it's good because what we've got, whether you agree with the team selection or you don't, what we're going to have eventually in the next few weeks is a fight for positions. So you're gonna have the likes of Torreira, Guendouzi, Xhaka, and El Neni fighting for the 2 holding midfield players, and then the 3 players that are going to, if they're going to support Aubameyang or Lacazette, you're going to have those players fighting because Ramsey came on today. So you're going to have a fight for those positions as well. And then with the Lacazette can play up front and Aubameyang can go wide. And we saw Iwobi come in today and score. So I think we're starting to see that the manager is trying different things, and he's not just going to pick the same team on reputation. He's going to pick a team on that he feels where those players are going to work for him best. And that's what I was saying today, that I quite like, that he's not afraid to take players off and make crucial decisions, even early in the game to half-time. We're not sure whether Xhaka was injured or because he was booked. Then he took Ozil off because he wanted to change it tactically. So I like that. Obviously, it's disappointing we've lost again today, but there are some signs there that I'm thinking this might just shake up this team a little bit, and it might drive it forward a bit more.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, let's see what some people are saying on social media. You've been getting in touch on Twitter and on the Arsenal Facebook page. Hello to Yemi Adebayo, who says, football can be cruel sometimes, a heartbreak moment for Arsenal. Yeah, it was horrible, even in here, watching that goal go in as well, because didn't have that much time to turn it back round, you know, and Arsenal did look a little tired. And, you know, once Chelsea got that goal, it would have been a big ask for us to get 1 back and potentially 2 back and win the game, you know. Also, hello to Ryan, who says 2 of Chelsea's goals came from non-defenders, Mkhitaryan and Lacazette, getting beat on the flank. Seems like a systemic issue for Arsenal. And we actually pointed that out here in the studio. You guys watched it. The experts pointed that out. What can we do to combat that?
Well, it's quite simple. Mentally, even if you're a forward and you come back into wide areas deep, you have to make sure that you don't have to tackle, but you've got to hold the player up and make it very, very difficult for him. And hopefully you can have a supporting player behind you as well, either Bellerin. But I thought Torreira did that very well at times. You could see that sometimes when Bellerin was one-on-one, he went in onto the half covering in case he got beaten. So I think when you're a non-defender and you come back into crucial areas, you've got to be difficult to beat. And that doesn't mean about attacking, just getting into positions, almost trying to force the opposition to go backwards rather than sticking out a leg and they go past you and you go, oh, it doesn't matter because we've got somebody else in the middle. It does matter, because what you have to think about is every time a player goes past you, potentially that opens up a goal-scoring opportunity for somebody, and that's how I think as a defender I used to think, certainly.
I think then maybe the other lads have kind of, the more defensive players, you know, step up that little bit. They're like, okay, Laka's back here, you know, defending Hazard in the full back area. There's a lot of space behind him. They've got to maybe, you know, just switch onto that a little bit more. Understand that maybe it's not his strength, even though he should have definitely done better. But just like switch onto it a little bit more.
Just talk to him. Just, you know, just give him information. Stand up. Don't get beaten. You know, make him go to the line. Make him come back. You know, just don't let him beat you and then be able to come inside. You know, you've got to be really, really resilient and think, if he goes past me here, that's a goal-scoring opportunity, rather than thinking, as I just said, oh, he's gone past me, but I'm a forward. It doesn't matter because I've got the defenders behind me.
Especially against the top teams where you'll get punished. You know, one mistake, you can be punished. Right, let's switch our attention to the Arsenal Facebook page. Lots of you getting in touch and having your say on there. Hello to Dan, who says there are a lot of turnovers in the midfield today. Francis Chu as well says, disappointed with the defensive line. What's the difference between this season and last season? Laurent Koscielny, maybe?
Well, our defensive line wasn't great last season either, was it? But, I mean, the little bits we talked about and we've discussed is basically, it's simple. No pressure on the ball. You can't keep a high line. You've got to drop off. And certainly in the first half, that was a big problem for us.
It didn't come up too much in the second half. And they did look that bit more secure.
Yes.
But then I just think when, you know, they got overloaded with players, like, you know, it was Alonso that was getting in the box and finishing their third goal. The fullback coming all the way into the, you know, driving into the 6-yard box to finish that. But that's where they've just, you know, they've got to be aware, they've got to be tight. That's when midfielders have got to track. Like, obviously you can say it's part of it is the defensive line, but it's the defence as a whole. You know, the midfielders and the forwards working their arses off to get back. So, yeah.
Well, we've got a message that's come in here, which I feel like this wouldn't necessarily be this type of message if we'd drawn or won the game. But Paul Anthony Fernandez says, first half glaring misses by Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, who only had to beat the Chelsea goalkeeper, skied the ball. Our loss is primarily due to our lack of clinical finishing. Do you agree with that? Is it a case of bad finishing or bad defending or a combination of both?
The whole game was, yes, the finishing doesn't help, but also earlier on we were getting pulled around too much, behind us, causing us too many problems. So I think one leads to the other, the frustration of being 1-0 down, missing a chance. I mean, everybody can miss a chance. And you could see by Aubameyang's reaction when he missed that chance and then he went back up and scored. He knew that he'd missed an opportunity to really change the game around. So, yes, they're glaring misses, but have they happened before in football? Yes, they have. Will they happen again? Yes, they will. It's how you react to it.
I think as well. I think the points are almost very obvious. You finish your chance. They were pretty clear chances. Finish the chance, and then you can. Well, to us anyway, we could really see what was going wrong with the back line. So it's easily fixed if they can get it right. I think that Hector was just getting dragged out a bit too much, and then either Mkhitaryan wasn't covering his space, or the rest of the back three weren't shuffling over. Maybe a centre mid dropping into the space. It happened a bit more then though when Guendouzi he really started to cover in centre halves places when they got dragged out, but that wasn't happening. You can see that Chelsea were just playing into those spaces anytime a centre half or a full back left. So to me, they're obvious things that they can work on.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's okay in training, walking through, even, going through against maybe the kids that you're playing against, and you can walk through positions, holding a high line, and when to drop. But it's in the heat of the battle when you're playing against real quality and the ball is being turned over quickly, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, we're supposed to be holding a high line here, but then all of a sudden no pressure on the ball. You almost forget. And it's like we're holding a high line but no pressure. So it looks as if they have worked on things, but as yet it hasn't been fine-tuned, and it's going to take a little while to get that right.
Yeah, I think they'll find their feet eventually. Let's not forget, we mentioned this earlier on, 2 games into a brand new regime at the club. So hello to Akpabasa, who says there's only one lesson to learn today: never defend a draw. A 2-2 draw, and Arsenal were defending 1 point. Very sad. I feel like it depends on the circumstance. I can see why he's frustrated, probably because the first half we ended so fast and so well, and then the second half we looked a bit lethargic and a little bit tired. What do you think Unai Emery's message was to the Arsenal players in the dressing room?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I can imagine he put across a clear message, but to me it didn't. I wasn't sure what the players maybe thought they wanted to do. I think they wanted just to be more solid, and then try catch them on the break a little bit, but. Because I think it was, if you were to actually look at the second half, I think they were quite more solid all over, and the play was more in the centre of the pitch, basically, for the whole half. Not too much happened. We didn't get into their box too often. They weren't drastically in our box, constantly getting chances, even though I thought Cech was great in the second half as well. We conceded 3 goals, but he made 3 quality saves there, which
I think also as well, it's a little bit like 2-0 down, you can throw a bit of caution to the wind. You've got to try and open up a little bit, go and attack. We did that very well. You come in at half-time, it's massive breath and go, we've got ourselves back into the game here. Let's re-get our shape. Let's try and build on what we've done. But you sort of lose that little bit of momentum that you had going forward, and it looks like, right, we've got to keep our shape. And we want to break on the counter-attack when we can and keep the ball, but we just didn't get a good quality possession of the ball in the second half in and around the Chelsea box.
Yeah, let's say hello to Liars White, who says, yes, we lost, it's not ideal, but I saw a lot more desire in forward positions in comparison to last season, where we gave up after going 2-0 down. There was the desire there was the fight. We were 2-0 down, we brought it back to 2-2. Was unfortunate not to win, but that's got to be a positive.
Yeah, definitely, and I think when like when we get momentum, I think we're really unstoppable. And I think it was just a shame what time half-time came at. But, you know, it just shows exactly what they're capable of. And there's so many positives to take from that and so much learned from the game. So from Man City to Chelsea, I think there's already been that step up of the level and maybe knowing what they're doing. Yeah, they didn't do it for the full 90 minutes. They maybe only did it for 30, 40 minutes, but it's there, it's coming. And, you know, it's a brand new season. You know, things have to be turned around after, you know, over 20 years of having, you know, one manager there. It's going to be tough to turn it around, but it's going to take a bit. It's going to, you know, a couple of seasons, couple of transfer windows and more training sessions.
And also as well, it's like what you're looking at is the level of performance has got to be at a certain height. I think I think today we've had a performance that's been down here, then it's gone right up to here, and then it's sort of dropped somewhere in between. And you know, when you play away from home, our away form last season was terrible. But when you play away from home, particularly against the big teams, you know, that level of performance has got to be up above halfway and above all the time. And if you slip below that level of performance and drop down, as we saw in the first 20-odd minutes, you're going to...
But that's got to be a positive.
Yeah, definitely, you know, and I think when we get momentum, I think we're really unstoppable. And I think it was just a shame what time half-time came at. But, you know, it just shows exactly what they're capable of. And there's so many positives to take from that and so much learned from the game. So from Man City to Chelsea, I think there's already been that step up of the level and maybe knowing what they're doing. Yeah, they didn't do it for the full 90 minutes. They maybe only did it for 30, 40 minutes, but it's there, it's coming. And, you know, it's a brand new season. You know, things have to be turned around after, you know, over 20 years of having, you know, one manager there. It's going to be tough to turn it around, but it's going to take a bit. It's going to, you know, a couple of seasons, couple of transfer windows and more training sessions.
And also as well, it's like what you're looking at is the level of performance has got to be at a certain height. I think I think today we've got to concede goals, so that's something that obviously the manager and the team are going to have to work at. That consistency level has got to be a lot higher. But there's positive signs there. So.
Back on the training ground, I'm sure there's things they can iron out. Somebody who I feel deserves an honourable mention is Alex Iwobi. Not only did he score a great goal, I feel like he had a good game. You know, he got subbed off, but it wasn't because he wasn't playing well. It was just a tactical change. Have you got a word on Iwobi?
Yeah, I just think I was impressed with him, and I think he's really just put his head down and just played, and I think that was it. I think he gave, you know, almost everything he had for the 70-odd minutes that he was on, and you know, that's if you can give your all in those 70 minutes and then, you know, gradually build up that fitness to go on and play more. But he was the threat. He was running at the Chelsea defenders. They weren't sure what to do. You know, sometimes he was running at them and then cutting inside a little bit. So like leaving space for Monreal to get outside him as well, to make that space to cross balls. And I think he's been, you know, he just needs to build that game intelligence. And I think it's coming from him. And you know, again, and he's showing as well, like when the ball's on the right wing, he can get into the box and start finishing chances. And, you know, it was an absolute, you know, thunder goal he scored there. You know, hopefully a few more of those can come during the season.
Someone else who deserves an honourable mention, actually, as well, and there's a lot of love for this guy out there on the socials, on the Arsenal Twitter and Facebook page, Guendouzi. Lots of people praising him, not only for having an amazing haircut, but also just because he had a really good game. 2 solid games, actually.
Yeah, but I think he's a player that's come from a lower league from abroad, and we've had a performance that's been down here, then it's gone right up to here, and then it's sort of dropped somewhere in between. And you know, when you play away from home, our away form last season was terrible. But when you play away from home, particularly against the big teams, you know, that level of performance has got to be up above halfway and above all the time. And if you slip below that level of performance and drop down, as we saw in the first 20-odd minutes, you're going to concede goals. So that's something that obviously the manager and the team are going to have to work at. That consistency level has got to be a lot higher. But there's positive signs there. So.
Back on the training ground, I'm sure there's things they can iron out. Somebody who I feel deserves an honourable mention is Alex Iwobi. Not only did he score a great goal, I feel like he had a good game. You know, he got subbed off, but it wasn't because he wasn't playing well. It was just a tactical change. Have you got a word on Iwobi?
Yeah, I just think I was impressed with him, and I think he's really just put his head down and just played, and I think that was it. I think he gave, you know, almost everything he had for the 70-odd minutes that he was on, and you know, that's if you can give your all in those 70 minutes and then, you know, gradually build up that fitness to go on and play more. But he was the threat. He was running at the Chelsea defenders. They weren't sure what to do. You know, sometimes he was running at them and then cutting inside a little bit. So like leaving space for Monreal to get outside him as well, to make that space to cross balls. And I think he's been, you know, he just needs to build that game intelligence. And I think it's coming from him. And you know, again, and he's showing as well, like when the ball's on the right wing, he can get into the box and start finishing chances. And, you know, it was an absolute, you know, thunder goal he scored there. You know, hopefully a few more of those can come during the season.
Someone else who deserves an honourable mention, actually, as well, and there's a lot of love for this guy out there on the socials, on the Arsenal Twitter and Facebook page, Guendouzi. Lots of people praising him, not only for having an amazing haircut, but also just because he had a really good game. 2 solid games, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a player that's come from a lower league from abroad, and what I like is he's got bags of energy. He's very gutsy, isn't he, as well? So I think he's still learning. But I think with the Arsenal supporters, what they want to see is almost like an all-action player, and he's giving them something to feed off, and that's why I'm saying that those holding midfield areas are going to be very interesting, because I think that Unai Emery would have had an idea when he was bringing his players in and just looking at his squad. He would have known who he wanted in that position. But I just think that maybe he's just put a little spanner in the works there and said, you know what, I'm ready to come into this team, and he's doing very well.
Yeah, because when he was signed, he was very much one for the future. And he's just gone straight into the team. A lot of people didn't see it coming, and now there's this battle between, you know, El Neni, Torreira, and Guendouzi. Who's going to win it? I mean, it's only good for the team, I guess. Someone else who I feel like we need to talk about on the show, Petr Cech. We mentioned it briefly. Conceded 3 goals, but he did play really well. I mean, it sounds like a crazy thing to say. I'm not taking the mick. This is the truth. He conceded 3 goals, but he played really well. Could have been worse, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, Chelsea did really create some top chances, and you know, he was there. Maybe could he have done a bit better with the 3rd goal at his near post? But again, I think when strikers or whoever's starting to, you know, go on goal, people are starting to actually aim for the keeper's legs, as they know that, you know, he's got to spread his body to try save. So, you know, sometimes it's getting smarter, but it definitely could have been a lot worse, and he kept the lads in it for sure. So that's just showing, you know, what kind of guy he is. He's got given a bit of criticism, and you know, he's just doing what he does. He's experienced, you know, really good guy, and has just stepped up to the mark.
But it wasn't his. He's let 5 goals in 2 games, but it wasn't. I don't think the criticism came from his shot stopping.
Yeah, exactly.
The criticism last week came from the ball at his feet.
Yeah.
So you know, it just shows that we talked about him earlier in the show, didn't we? Saying that I'm sure he's big enough to deal with the criticism. And he's responded again today, and it seems, like you say, it seems crazy that goalkeepers let in 3 goals, but he's actually had a decent game.
I think even as well, if you see, like, you know, again, they were trying to play out from the back, but when he was getting the ball, or maybe when the centre backs were pulling really wide and getting the ball, the movement just kind of, it wasn't there, or they were, you know, the players were in the position, but then they were standing in the position, whereas they should be running into position, getting there, a bit more movement. So that's why it was easy for Chelsea to press the ball, because the movement kind of wasn't there when Cech or the centre backs kind of had it. But I think he made the right decisions and went long with it when he needed to go long, played short when he needed to play short. So again, he's answering the critics.
So you've both seen evidence of kind of the playing out from the back in training, you know, practicing that. You've seen that kind of improving.
Yeah, I think it was better today. Still think there is a lot to work on, But we talked about it. It's all about, it's okay doing it in training. It's when you get into the game. And just because the manager says to you, do you know what? I want you to pass it out from the back. If it's not on, then it doesn't matter whether it's your goalkeeper or one of your back four players. Then if you think it's not on at this moment in time, I'm actually out there game time, I'm just going to drop it into midfield or I'm going to drop it into my forward. There's nothing wrong with that because I don't think the manager's going to criticise you for that, because it's where it gets very, very nervy is when Czech's got the ball and then he's looking for an option to give it out when we're being really pressed and there isn't no real option. And I think the crowd then start to get very, very nervy around it as well. So you're working on situations in training, but it doesn't mean you have to do exactly that every single time. You've got to react to what's happening within the game.
Right, before we let you go, sum up that match in one word. We'll start with you, Louise.
I will say unpredictable.
Unpredictable.
Crazy.
Crazy. I thought someone was going to throw out a crazy. Yeah. Right, Louise, Nigel, thank you so much for joining us on Arsenal Nation Live. And thank you as well. We will be back next week for the West Ham game. I'll see you then.